So before we really get going into the topic for the day, I wanted to clarify something. I was asked a question earlier this week that made me realize that there were different thoughts on what I call race consciousness, and we've talked about that a few times here recently. So we're gonna get clear on that. And what I can tell you is that your thought on race consciousness is not wrong. It just may not be complete. Race consciousness does cover cultures, and the person asking questions thought it was about ethnic groups, and it does cover that. But it covers cultures, it covers ethnic groups. It's part of our ancestral beliefs, but it's bigger than that. It's the human race. And the reason I want to be real clear on this is because we are bombarded every single day with attempts to create a new race consciousness. This isn't some sort of conspiracy theory thing. This is happening, folks. If you watch the TV for 30 minutes, you're going to see a minimum of 3 commercials on drugs, some sort of prescription drugs. And these drugs are telling us, if I don't get this vaccine, I'm going to have pneumococcal pneumonia and I'm going to die. That is creating a new race consciousness because people are starting to believe it. People are starting to buy into it. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to have pneumonia if I don't do this. That's what race consciousness is all about. It's when a multitude of people believe the same way. And unfortunately, that belief system is not built on truth. It's built on whatever a marketer decides you need to hear. So race consciousness is huge. It's huge, and it's affecting us right this moment. What I sit up here and talk about, if you all buy it without thinking about it for yourself, I'm creating a new race consciousness. I don't ever want you guys to take what I say as the truth without inspecting it for yourself. My whole job is to present you with what I feel is truth based on what I have studied of others who feel that that's truth, and then you've got to figure out whether it works for you. Because if it doesn't work for you, you don't need to be buying into it. I believe it will work, but that's a different thing. But race consciousness, it is huge, and it plays into today's talk on constant creation because, as we've talked about many, many, many times, our thoughts create. As expressions of God, we are involved, highly involved in the creative process every moment of our lives. That's why this race consciousness stuff plays so big here. It's because it's usually stuff, we watch TV for an hour and we we're watching a show that we thoroughly enjoy, and we pretend like we're not tuned into these commercials, but we're hearing these messages. And those messages are going into our subconscious. And that foundation of thoughts that are playing down here that we're not even aware of start affecting the thoughts that we are aware of. They start affecting the way we think about ourselves. They start affecting the way we think about our world and our environment. We wonder why the world is in such a mess today. Well, a lot of it's because our thought process is based on stuff that have been fed to us that don't work and don't serve us, and we're not even aware of it. So we look out into the world and we see mess. There's a lot of stuff happening in the world on the material level. I'll give you that. We hear stuff every day. But it is our belief about these things, it is our experience of these things that create how our life shapes up, that create ultimately how we experience it all. As one with God, we are one with the divine mind. The thoughts that are formed in this one mind are acted upon by divine principle and take form in our lives. I read a beautiful article this week. It was from the April of 2022 Science of Mind magazine, written by Carol Carnes. I'm going to refer to this article several times today. But the first line that I wanted to read to you is this: removing ourselves from the ever-becoming universe is impossible. I love the way she wrote this, because she writes the ever-becoming, constant creation, constant evolution to more, to better, to whatever it is that we are focused on. But it's impossible for us not to be a part of it. It's impossible for us not to create, because we're constantly thinking, and thoughts create. It's pretty amazing when you consider, when you look around yourself and just consider that everything you see is creation. This is how powerful these thoughts are, folks. Thoughts create. And we've read through Course of Miracles and many other things that we've studied. We have read that no creation, no miracle, as some people call it, is greater than any other. So the thought that it takes to create an idea is the same thought that it takes to create a tree. Thought creates. Every situation we find ourselves in, and this is where it gets kind of rough to believe this stuff. Every situation we find ourselves in is a result of our participation in the creative process. It's our thought process. Our participation is through our thoughts, as all of creation begins with thought, which is acted upon by divine principle, resulting in a demonstration of those thoughts. Now, I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit, because that one doesn't sit real well sometimes. Some people hear that and they think, well, I was sick last week. I didn't think that into existence. And most of us don't sit around and go, let's see, next week, man, that'd be pretty cool to be sick for a week. Yeah. Most of us don't do that. What happens, though, is our thought processes creates choices that we make that sometimes lead to illness. We make a choice to go somewhere where we're subjected to illness. We get our thoughts out of sync with truth, and something develops. Our thoughts create these choices that we make, and we choose to make steps that lead us to situations. Okay? It's not that we necessarily created the illness. We created the path to the illness, though. The physical world. This is Carnes again. The physical world is proof of the continued creation of God, and she calls it intelligence producing form. I love that, because anything that we see is the result of intelligence producing. Meister Eckhart said, God is forever beginning the only begotten. And what Carnes says about this is that this means that each creation, each new experience in our life, each new I forgot the word, discovery that we have in our life is just an extension of the original creation. What this tells us is that God is the original. God is the purest truth. Every creation from that is an extension of that truth. It goes to prove that we are expressions of God. That we have within us the same traits, the same attributes of God, of Christ. And it's through that discovery and that awareness and that expression of Christ's mind that we direct the things in our life. Carnes asks us to consider every choice you have made brought you to this moment and the conditions you are experiencing. We have tremendous power over the content of our... Listen to this one. This is this is a good one. We have tremendous power over the content of our minds. But most of us exercise only a tiny portion of it. I totally believe that. Totally believe that. You know, science proved a long time ago that we only use something like 10% of our mind. I disagree with that a little bit. I think that we use all of it, but we're only aware of about 10% of what we use. Because a lot of stuff's happening in the subconscious that has to happen to make this body do what it's supposed to do. So I think we use it all, but we're only aware of a little bit of it. And opening awareness to that, we add power to what we are capable of doing. In that same article, excuse me, Carnes suggests, think from the whole to the part by turning away from limited conditions that we want to change. Release the limited conditions into the nothingness from whence it came. Focus on the new idea. See it, feel it, and declare it to be active now as your inner guidance, your actualized experience. And stay tuned in. We cannot think from the whole without realizing truth. If you think that you are less than, if you think that you are separate from, if you think that you are not worthy of God expression, you can't see truth. And if you can't see the truth, you can't vision anything from the whole. So the first thing, no matter what, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to be sure we were clear on this race consciousness, we have to get tuned in. We have to tune into truth. And if you can't just all of a sudden go, I'm one with God, we're there. That's fine if you can't. If you can't, you've got to tune into these thoughts that tell you you can't. You've got to get clear on that. Because it is when we clear those thoughts away, when we release all of those limits and tune into the whole, that we start seeing the parts, if you will, as they can be. You know, we can have these big giant dreams all day long, and if we have this wall of can'ts in front of them, we'll never get to that dream. Even if you chip away at a couple of them, you're not going to get fully to that dream. It's always going to be part of what it could be. So start with the whole. Start with the idea that there is no limiting condition other than the thinking that creates the limiting condition. Because the limiting condition is not real. It's this illusion. It's this thing that's made up. You can't go out there and take a hammer after it and knock it away. The only way to take care of that limiting condition is through your thinking. This is a spiritual universe, and all can be dealt with. All can be created. All can be made manifest through our thoughts. When we begin with truth, we can know in our mind and in our heart the wholeness of what it is that we desire. How many times have you had this dream of something and you stepped out there and you figured out a way to get it and it just wasn't what you thought it was going to be. That's what happens when you begin somewhere other than the whole. When you begin with the whole, you know. When those limiting conditions appear in our thought, or even materially, I mean, sometimes, the finances, that's a big material thing that jumps up for a lot of people. It's still a thought thing, but I mean, if we just go to a material level, there is that money that sometimes there appears to be a lack of. We can release the limit. We don't have to go rob a bank so that we can make that stack look bigger so that we solve that problem. We don't have to go work harder so we can solve that problem. We have to release that limit, which is the thought that we don't have enough. When we release those into the nothingness, as Karn said, from which they came, I love that because that's all they are. Limits are nothing other than our imagination getting the best of us. That's all they are. We release them into the nothingness. It's like this piece of nothing is going into that nothingness. And when it's over there, I don't have to deal with it anymore because that's nothing. Those limiting conditions do not exist. They come to us in the form of fear. I mean, even if you look at it and say, I'm not afraid of that, I just can't get past it. Well, the thought that you can't get past it is a fear. It's all fear-based. And I've said it many times, fear is nothing more than future events appearing real. It has nothing to do with those things becoming real, because fear is out in the future. Fear is not right now. So turn your focus to the wholeness of the idea, of the new idea that you have. If you're trying to manifest something, just turn your focus to that. Find that whole picture, which begins in truth. You begin looking at this new thing as if you are the sum total of all that is God, and you're looking at it through those eyes because you're an attribute of God. You are an expression of God. You are one with God. You see what it is. You see that desire as what it is, and that's where you begin your visioning for it. When we begin with truth, we can know in our mind and heart the wholeness of what we desire to create. One of my worst things is I get a vision in my head of something that I want to create into my life. And I let one of those limits pop up, and usually it's about money. I'll look at it and say, okay, well, let's see, the money's going to say this, so I guess I'm going to have to adjust this. And I find myself doing that a lot lately. Money says this, so this picture has to be adjusted to this picture. And if you can do that in a way that serves you, that makes you truly happy, then maybe that big picture wasn't actually what you wanted. But this is something that you have to play out in your own mind, and you can't do that if you're playing with limiting beliefs. You have to release those. You have to see the whole, what serves you, what it is that truly wants to manifest in your life. So as you're looking at this fullness of the idea, just be sure you get a clear picture of it in your mind. You look at it. You see, what does it look like? What do you hear? What does it feel like? If there's a taste involved, what does it taste like? Get all of those things. Be very, very clear on all of those things and affirm it to be true now. This is where a lot of people have a problem. I'm trying to get this new car, and I see it, I hear it, oh, it's this color, it's this, oh yeah, the leather seats, oh man, that's nice, that air conditioning blowing cold, and you're really getting into it. And then you open your eyes up and there's not this vehicle sitting in front of you, so you go, I guess it's not meant to be. I guess it's not supposed to happen yet. This is where we get discouraged. Science has proven this to be true. What we experience in our minds, especially when we're in that visioning process, our minds cannot tell the difference between that mental experience and the physical touching and hearing and smelling and seeing. Our mind cannot. So what this tells us is that the experience that we have in our own minds and hearts is as powerful or more than the actual thing, material thing sitting in front of you. So let me ask you this. If you were to have a very clear picture of your biggest dream, and you spend time thinking about it, you spend time seeing it through your vision, you spend time hearing the noises associated with it, tasting it if it has that taste, touching it, feeling it, and you can get that full experience, does it really matter whether the physical thing is out there or not? What this tells us is we can have the experience no matter what conditions may present out front. But the good news is if we accept that truth, that knowledge, those scientific proofs, if we accept those and we spend time experiencing that, if your dream is a trip to a secluded beach in Tahiti, and you spend time in your mind on that beach in Tahiti, two things are going to happen. One is you're going to have more than just a vacation experience because you can go there anytime you want to. And two, when you see it as truth without limiting conditions, I think it's probably going to manifest in this material world for you. I say probably because those limiting conditions sometimes get in the way. That limited thinking. And I can't dictate what limiting thoughts you let go of and which ones you hang on to. So see it, feel it, hear it, just allow it. Remember that these race conscious beliefs, well, I'm pointing, it's not there. These race conscious, the race consciousness thoughts and beliefs that you have, those sometimes will block you from getting these things. Discover what that is. You got to dig deeper, and sometimes that's through the feeling. Sometimes you are looking at this vision and something just feels off. Check into that feeling. What is it? Discover what it is. What you bring into your consciousness is an experience. It's experience as real as the material thing. And that's a beautiful thing and a horrible thing. The beautiful thing is you can go to that beach in Tahiti if that's your dream. Anytime you want. You can experience the warmth, the smells, the sounds. You can experience all of that. But just as true as that is, if you choose to look at limiting conditions, if you choose to look at fear and anxiety and illness as your truth, that's going to be your truth. Or your apparent truth, I should say. Our thoughts create. We are constantly creating. And if we don't tune in to what we're thinking, what we're creating is up to whatever mood we happen to be in that day. We've got to tune in. This is what Carnes talked about when she said we have tremendous power over the content of our minds, but most of us use only a tiny portion of it. So we exercise this power through conscious awareness. It's happening all the time, but when we bring power to our consciousness, when we become aware of our consciousness, we direct that power. This is how Christ was able to do what he did. He directed the power within him. And then before he left this earth, he said, "You too can do all I've done." He didn't say, "You too can do all I've done," except there was no exception A lot of us put an exception. Well, I can't heal the sick, or I can't walk on water. I can't. He didn't say except. He said, you too have the power to do what I have done. So know that. Remember that. Clear out those illusions that block you. Clear out those illusions that say you're not enough. Clear out those illusions that says this fear is bigger than your God. Because anytime you bow down to the fear, that's what you're saying. God's bigger than it all. So creation is constant. You play a part in this creation. Choose what you want. See the wholeness of it. Go make it happen. So we're going to close today with a prayer that I found by Reverend Anna Scott, which also came from a Science of Mind magazine a couple years ago. So this prayer is, one life, one spirit, one love. God is everywhere present in and through all things. I sense the presence of this spirit everywhere I look as the seasons begin to change and life comes bursting forth in the tiny flowers that have been resting and waiting for the divine signal to emerge. Knowing that God is in all and through all, I know I am a divine emanation of the one presence and the one power. As I know this to be true for me, I know it to be true for all people everywhere. We are one. In this moment, I claim that each and every one of us is open to a more complete experience of the divine. We are open to the limitless possibilities of the Eternal One. As we step into this season of new growth, we see reflected in our lives an intrinsic ability to dive deeper into our relationship with our own personal divine. I release this word and allow it to go into the law of love, knowing it returns to me fulfilled. And so it is. Amen.